Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, and loin dreamer, and today we're going to be talking about a bit of a more serious subject that has to do with an abuse of power, and it may not be in the direction that you are thinking that it is. But this is going to be a sketchy subject because I don't have as much information as I would like, so it's going to be a greater conversation about what is happening in this scenario, in these continually repeating scenarios, the misuse of power, the accusations, and the lack of evidence that continually happens in order to bolster somebody else's projects or to sell things at the expense of somebody else's life and reputation. But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, if you have anything that you would like me to cover here on the channel, there is a link in the description below for you to send me anonymously anything that you would like to hear my opinion on or thoughts on. You can also hit me up on social media if there are any issues that you would like me to talk about, like this one. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, there are two different ways to do it. Number one is through the monthly prompt writing contest called Lemoy, where I give you a prompt. You write a short story that uses that prompt some way or another. And on the first Monday video of the month, we do the prompts together. It's a great time because y'all are so insanely creative. The second way is if you are an indie author and you have a book out or you have a book coming out, then submit your first chapter and your cover to the Fresh Meat feature, and they will be read here on the channel to hopefully help more readers find your content while they're just, browsing YouTube, looking for something to listen to at work, and then they're like, or listening, looking for something to listen to work or on the drive, and then they're like, hey, I like this. I would like more of this. So hopefully, that'll help out. And then number three, if you would like to check out any of my books, they are linked in the description below as well, and you can find them at any of your favorite retailers. I have a new book coming out in October, the third in the Bodymore trilogy, completing Joey's story. But you can get them anywhere that you like books as long as you have my name or the book's names. So with that said, let's jump into the topic. And do prepare yourself, for it is one of sensitivity. Let's go with the term sensitivity, because, well, if you've been on the internet for like the last 15, 20 years, you may have seen the rise of false rape accusations. And you would think that we would maybe be over this a little bit, like a little better about just accepting stuff at face value after Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial last year, though it doesn't really seem to matter since there are plenty of people that still believe Amber Heard despite all of the evidence against her. And there's just nothing that you can do. And that's one of the reasons why you need to be so careful about making accusations like this. What you are doing is you are destroying somebody's name, reputation, their business, their future when you make accusations. So do not do it lightly. And often in the context of rape accusations, you see conversations like, well, why would somebody lie about that? For power, for money, for personal benefit, out of revenge, out of anger. There are lots of reasons that somebody would abuse that ability, especially with the current listen and believe narrative that permeates many communities. And I just want to put a plea out there that if you are involved in any of these communities where an accusation comes up, look for evidence, ask for evidence. It's not wrong to request evidence for something that ruins somebody's life. It's understandable that if somebody comes forward and says, I am a victim, that you would want to defend the victim, to be an advocate for the victim, but by unquestionably believing, but by believing people who make accusations without question, you're also creating other victims. And so how did all of this come up? Why am I talking about this specifically? What does this have to do with books? Well, earlier last month, I saw this thread on Twitter by Ray Knowles. And it says, others have tweeted, I'm naming him, we need to talk about curator of horror Chance Forshee. Now, before I get started into this subject, I'm going to go ahead and say I'm not involved in the horror community. I never heard of Ray Knowles or Chance Forshee before this. I have no idea what their reputations are. I don't know if there's any I don't know if there's any merit to the way that he is accused of acting, and I don't know if there's any merit to the way that, and I don't know if there's any merit to Ray Knowles' accusations. This is why I want to present the conversation with you guys about how important this subject is and why we need evidence. I'm not here to take sides of one or the other, but I am here to take the side of we need evidence before you ruin somebody's life. And let me know what you think. We're going to go through the Twitter thread that she has created, and you can let me know what you think on this subject based on the evidence she presented for her declarations. And then I'm going to go through a couple other stories to sort of show the dubiousness of making accusations, false accusations. So this all started with this tweet of, I'm naming him. She said, a while back, Chance sent a DM that made me uncomfortable. It had a sexual connotation, but was ambiguous enough that it left me feeling unsure of what to do. I'm already committed to being on his podcast, and he was blurbing my book. I set a boundary and tried to write it off. Recently, I've learned I'm not the only person that he's made feel this way, even hearing phrasing almost identical to what was said to me. This changed my stance. Rather than potentially a bad joke or a misunderstanding, this is a pattern of behavior. Chance has a platform, albeit a relatively small, and an ability to get books in his Barnes & Noble. This creates a power dynamic. I'm fortunate enough to not need income from my writing to survive. This is a privilege that I want to use to inform others and potentially protect them from being made to feel how I felt. This is not a specific call to action. I'm sharing this because I feel strongly it's important people know so that they can make informed decisions around working/interacting with him. Sharing this only amongst friends, disadvantaged people outside of those small circles. To anyone else who has been made to feel uncomfortable by him, I see you, I love you, I'm sorry it happened. You should not feel pressured to share your experiences unless you want to. And then I need to mute this, but I'm humbled by the outpouring of support. Now, couple of things. I gotta see this. Her platform technically is bigger than his because she's got more followers than him. So let's first put that out there. Also, by the time this tweet came out, it was about 2 weeks before she had a book release that, surprise, after this tweet came out, it was also a #1 bestseller in one of its categories. So there is something to be said about the timing, especially since she admits that she was having a conversation with him a while back and then opportunistically picked a different time to talk about this issue. Not to mention there is some dubiousness to the claim. There are, as you can see in this thread, and I'll link it in the description below for anybody that wants to look at it themselves, there were no DMs. There are no receipts. There's nothing here. She doesn't even say what he possibly said that made her uncomfortable. Was it awkward flirting? Was it straightforward flirting? Because some people really do respond to the very straightforward flirting while other people don't. Some people take phrases that are not actually meant to make you uncomfortable and they take them uncomfortably. Just like, being an autist, I say things all the time that accidentally step on people's toes, and I don't know because I don't understand, and I'm not saying things in an aggressive way or a mean way, and I don't have the social awareness to be able to tell those things. So I just say things how they are, and then eventually months later I learn that somebody is angry at me for something I didn't even know I did because I didn't do anything. So that can happen, and you have a responsibility if you're going to be working with somebody, especially of the opposite sex. You have a responsibility to at least be straightforward with them and say, hey, this makes me uncomfortable, please don't do that. If somebody is just showing interest one way or another, if somebody maybe just has an awkward sense of humor, it's hard to know what actually happened here without any sort of reference to what was said. All it was is it made me uncomfortable, sexual connotations, but were ambiguous enough that I didn't say anything, which means it could have been nothing. Which also means it could have just been an awkward flirting thing that she just wasn't into because she wasn't into him. But if you said, hey, please stop, and they stop, then it's fine. It's not harassment. It's not a power imbalance. And technically you doing this has made it a power imbalance. So what happened following this thread is that Chance deleted all of his social media, including his actual website, disappeared off the internet basically, and he was removed from the StokerCon's list of guests because he was going to be at StokerCon, and was actually removed from the Horror Writers Association. If you're interested in the Horror Writers Association's harassment policy, I'll link it in the description below for you to go through. But if all that it takes is for something like this and then no evidence whatsoever and somebody is removed and deleted, that's a problem. Additionally, can we take a moment to recognize that Ray Knowles is also a bigot? It's always a little jarring when I find out a really cool person is straight. Now, maybe this is her being tongue-in-cheek. Maybe she's always tongue-in-cheek. But even somebody just coming saying this is a ridiculous and offensive post, where, you know, probably responsive if somebody said, hey, it's always really jarring when I find out that a really cool and interesting person is gay. Or, oh, I find it really jarring when I find an interesting, cool person is actually a woman. Like, would that not be offensive to the same type of person? Anyway, whether this is tongue-in-cheek or not, she says, can't imagine the oppression that you faced in straight white men. Finally, a hero has emerged to defend you. And she's laughing. Okay, so we've got bigotry down, and we've got the targeting of a white male. I'm just gonna leave you to sit with this and think of what kind of person acts like this or thinks like this. And then we go back to, she released a very vague thread, destroying somebody's reputation with zero evidence. And this happens constantly. Here we go, 2016. I know this is an old article. We'll get to some newer ones as we go. But dad cleared of incest rape thanks to 50 Shades of Grey. Like I said, this is not that uncommon. The daughter of a British man told police a compelling, believable story. Her father, she said, had raped her 8 times over a 6-year period. My client had absolutely no real defense other than I did not do it, the man's lawyer, defense barrister Kathy McCulloch, wrote in a blog about the trial that was first notched by The Independent. In support of her allegations, the daughter described in detail what her dad supposedly did to her and how it made her body feel. But something about the police interview bugged McCulloch, who was called in late to defend the father. The words and the phrasing the daughter used seemed beyond her years. McCulloch didn't meet with her client until the first day of the trial held earlier this month. He provided little for her with which to mount a defense, but he did note that his daughter's favorite book was 50 Shades of Grey, the sadomasochistic sex bestseller. He had no idea what 50 Shades of Grey was about, added McCulloch, and neither I nor my instructing solicitor's representative had read the books. To remedy this literary shortcoming, she persuaded the judge to adjourn the trial for the rest of the day so that she could speed read the steamy novel. Her instincts provided correct. She found too many striking similarities between the daughter's interview with the police and the book to be a coincidence. When the daughter did take the stand 3 days into the trial, McCulloch was ready. She gently began the cross-examination, getting the daughter to admit that her father was strict and that she was annoyed at him for ruining her life. When McCulloch questioned if her anger led her to make up the rape story, the daughter wavered. McCulloch then compared the text to her police interview to the passages from 50 Shades of Grey, and the daughter broke on the stand like a pair of cheap handcuffs. She tearfully admitted making up the entire story to get her father in trouble. In 7 minutes, the prosecutor's case had been demolished. The judge ordered the jury to acquit. According to McCulloch, the judge stated that the case was unique in the whole of his career. So this happens just to get back at somebody, just because she was angry at her father. And you know what happens when you make these sorts of accusations? It's what somebody gets known for. Look at what is stuck with Johnny Depp now, and there are people that will never stop thinking of him as an abuser of the worst things that Amber Heard said that he did. That is, when you take away somebody's reputation, when you drag their name through the mud, you destroy who they are. You destroy their life. It is one of the most despicable things that you can do. Which is ironic when you're making rape accusations, because that's also a despicable thing that you can do. And if somebody did not actually, or sexual harassment claims, and if somebody did not actually do anything to you, and then you ruin their life with something they didn't do to you, or that had no effect, because it's the internet, Ray. If he is making you uncomfortable through DMs, block him. You know how many uncomfortable or bad situations, like terrible DMs I've had, and I've just moved on? It's nothing. And if you don't have anything to prove that they're terrible, then what are you doing? But why would somebody make false accusations? Because there is something to gain. She posted her accusation on April 30th. By May 3rd, her book was #1 in new releases in LGBT thrillers. Yeah, there's something to gain here. And there's little to lose when most people that make these kinds of accusations never face recourse for them. Up here, young man cleared of multiple false rape accusations at trial this summer. This was July 2021. A young man who faced multiple rape accusations from 3 separate girls was cleared of all charges at 2 separate criminal trials this summer. Kristen Suthers, now 23-year-old, is attempting to put his life back together after the false accusations placed him behind bars and stripped him of his freedom. During the first part of 2020, Suthers was living with a relative who happened to be in a romantic relationship with another individual. That partner had a young daughter who also lived in the residence with them. The girl, her older half-sister who sometimes stayed at the home, and a 16-year-old neighbor girl who was friends with his 2 sisters would all claim that Suthers raped them. According to Suthers' defense attorney, Keith Edwards, soon after the accusations were made, the 16-year-old began changing her story and eventually admitted she was never raped. No criminal charges were ever brought against Suthers in that matter, nor the girl charged with making the false statement. There is often, in general, no punishment for making these claims. However, it ruins people's lives, destroys their lives, and in some cases, leads to death. As previously reported by Y-City News, Suthers was originally charged in April of this year against the older half-sister. According to his indictment in that case, Suthers allegedly raped the minor at least 2 times between April 21, 2020 and June 17, 2020. The case would eventually proceed to trial in June. During it, the alleged victim was questioned about text messages on her cell phone. Evidence presented by the defense showed that she had lied to her mother, her boyfriend, the interviewer at Children's Hospital, and made contradictory statements to the jury. Based upon that and other evidence, Suthers was acquitted of all 4 criminal counts. Crying as he heard the verdict read aloud, Suthers, like anyone acquitted at trial, assumed that he would be released. Unbeknownst to him, on the final day of the trial, while both the prosecution and defense were giving their closing remarks, prosecutors were presenting evidence to another grand jury in the allegations against him for the younger half-sister. Instead of being allowed to walk out on that Wednesday evening in June, Suthers was escorted back to Muskingum County Jail, where he would remain until the next trial, unable to afford his $500,000 bond. In that case, heard by a jury that July, the alleged victim wouldn't testify. Statements made through her mom to a law enforcement officer also wouldn't match the statements that she made 2 weeks later to investigators at Children's Hospital. Again, after deliberation, a jury would return a not guilty verdict. This time, Suthers would be allowed to walk out a free man. In total, Suthers would spend nearly 100 days behind bars for crimes that the jury found him to have not committed. Edwards says that after many stressful and sleepless nights, Suthers is just glad to be a free man again. He is back with his family and has found employment. Between the 2 cases, he faced not just a maximum of 72 years in jail, a likely life sentence, but also would have been required to register as a sex offender. While Suthers is now a free man once again, he will not be compensated for nearly 14 weeks of his life that he spent behind bars as an innocent man, too poor to afford his $500,000 bail, nor will he soon recover from the emotional trauma of being falsely accused. When asked if he would like to provide any statements or information, elected Muskingum County Prosecutor Ron Welch audibly read the following statement. We're going to continue to protect the most vulnerable citizens of our community, those being our children. We are going to do that aggressively but fairly and within the bounds of the law. We appreciate the courage that is displayed by every victim that comes forward and goes through a very difficult process in the legal system. We express our gratitude to the individual that investigate cases and prosecutors that spend the tremendous amount of time working on these cases, knowing that they are amongst the hardest type of cases to get a guilty verdict. So you never get away from it, and especially it's the first person that makes the accusation that usually people go with. If you look at, again, going back, because the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp case was so public, there was obviously fighting and mistreatment going back and forth to some extent between the 2 of them, because they were both not in a very good space. However, there is so much evidence of the abuse that Amber Heard wrought upon Johnny Depp, and there are still so many people that will never see Johnny's victimhood. Because all you got to do is be the first person to make the accusation, and especially if you're a woman. And it makes it so insanely dangerous for anyone to really speak out against this stuff, because you will be called an enabler, you will be called all sorts of names and disregarded and blacklisted from communities. This is something, going back to Ray with Chance, this is something that you can't actually talk about every time it happens within the community. There is a silent wall, an iron curtain threat that says, listen to how we tell you to behave or else you will get cut. And everybody in these organizations that do this is trying to keep people in line via these threats. It is such a problem that there is the Marshall Project, which is for false rape allegations. The damage is real. It's not just reputation. Gamergate creator's suicide after feminist Zoe Quinn accuses him of abuse shows peril of Twitter trials. Again, and all you have to do is go onto Twitter, make an accusation within a community, and people will flock to you to defend your victimhood, especially if you are a female. More recently, Buffalo Bills punter Matt Araiza, 2 former San Diego State teammates accused of gang raping a minor in this lawsuit. Now, this came up because his trial has just moved forward, I think it was. I heard about this from Matt Christensen. If you want a more thorough walkthrough, if you want a more thorough go through on this situation, go check out his channel about this specifically. But what happened is a Bills rookie punter, Matt Araiza, and 2 others have been accused of gang raping a 17-year-old girl in a lawsuit filed in San Diego County Superior Court on Thursday. This is from 2022. The lawsuit obtained by ESPN involves allegations against Araiza and 2 of his former San Diego State teammates. The other men named in the complaint are Xavier Leonard, a redshirt freshman with the Aztecs, and Nolan Ewalico, who was a freshman last season but is no longer on a listed roster. All 3 are accused of rape, gender violence, and false imprisonment. Araiza's criminal attorney, Kerry Armstrong, told ESPN that his client spoke with a girl at a party, but that rape allegations are just untrue. Now, it just so happened that this accusation was made sometime after the party actually happened, and just after Araiza had signed, what was it? I think a $4 million deal. So there was something to gain out of this. More recently on May 23rd, it was reported ex-Bills punter Matt Araiza wasn't present at alleged gang rape, says prosecution, because, stuff takes time to go through the court system. So this was reported last year. He got axed from what he was doing because of the rape accusations, and it is only now being looked into by the courts and being released. So unsealed documents show the prosecutors in the gang rape case of Matt Araiza said that the former Bills punter was not present during the alleged incident. Araiza and 2 of his former San Diego State teammates were accused of gang rape at a house party in San Diego in a civil lawsuit last year. In December, prosecutors declined to press charges on the case, saying that there was not enough evidence of proof for the conviction. Yet the information still went around and he was still punished. Monday, Yahoo Sports reported that a 200-page transcript of a meeting that Deputy District Attorney Tricia Amador had with the accusers became available, and that Amador said Araiza could not have been the one to lead her toward the alleged gang rape because he had left the house an hour before it had occurred. He wasn't even at the party anymore. All I know is at that point, suspect Araiza is gone from the party. Araiza, nicknamed the Punt God, was selected in the 6th round of the 2022 NFL Draft and was released by the Bills after the allegations became public. Again, ruining people's lives with allegations where there is no evidence. Why? Personal benefit. Disgusting. Prosecutors also told the accusers that they could not determine from video evidence that a sexual intercourse with the other men was forcible as opposed to consensual. And looking at the videos on the sex tape, I absolutely cannot prove any forcible sexual assault based upon what happened. There is nothing in the videos that sounds like you're saying stop or this hurts or anything like that. Again, if you want a more detailed description of this case and what happened here, check out Matt Christensen's video. He does a very good, very thorough breakdown. But at the end of the day, this is all about this idea of guilty until proven innocent, specifically with internet claims of rape or malfeasance or sexual anything. And it's constantly presented with no evidence, with this assumption and this hope and this benefit of the doubt given to the victim, because generally people want to believe that you wouldn't lie about that. But again and again and again, we see evidence of people willing to destroy other people's lives for personal benefit. So all that I ask of you, anyone in this situation, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below if you feel like you can, because I know that this is a touchy subject. I know that this is a risky subject, and that's one of the reasons why I am choosing to cover it, to make sure that it gets coverage, because I am already okay with just making everybody angry. I've accepted that's probably my lot in life. But I ask you, please require some kind of evidence in order to believe claims. We need to get past this just believing thing. I understand it is noble to want to protect the victims, but in just believing accusations, You pretend that women can do no wrong, the women that make these accusations specifically. I know there are men that make false claims, but in this case, we're talking about women. You are just believing women cannot tell a lie, that women can do no wrong, that women would never abuse this position of power. And quite honestly, it's kind of ironic that she's going to talk about a power imbalance when there is actually a power imbalance in this situation. And it's because women have undue authority in calling people predators, in calling people abusers, and the internet will react to protect them quicker than they will react to ask for information. Because that is how our society is currently set up and currently responds. And you are going to create a situation. There's already so much resentment. There's already so much anger. There's already so much disbelief. And you're ruining people's lives so that you can make money, so that you can get a name for yourself, so that you can get more jobs. It's disgusting. Can we stop treating people like just a rung on a ladder for you to throw under as tinder, burn down their life so that you can build yours up? Now, I don't know if Ray is lying. I don't know if Chance is actually a bad person, if he has actually abused people, if he just makes people uncomfortable. I have no idea. But neither does anybody in this thread that just responds to these accusations, because in this accusation of I was made uncomfortable, there were sexual connotations, but it was ambiguous enough that it just left me feeling unsure. There is nothing to go off there. So can we slow down on this prosecution of others? Can we slow down on the destruction of others? We'll see. It's just a really sad state of affairs that people see the conditioning, the social conditioning toward this. And many are afraid to call this out when it happens because it is a risk to their career. That is how a lot of this works, is people don't want to say anything because they're either adjacent to this community or they're in these kinds of communities. And this happens all over the place, like with Gamergate, like with Johnny Depp, and in different associations within the writing community as well. There are these situations where these accusations happen, and it's not just sexual malfeasance, it is any sort of ism, and then you will get blacklisted. And I know so many people that don't want to say anything when they see something because they don't want to ground their future career in writing. Fortunately, I accept that I'm already a loser and I'm never going to be anywhere, so I might as well just burn it all down, baby. And talk about what needs to be talked about. So good luck for me. We'll see if I make it to 35, right? At least I still have Mashima, okay? Those are my thoughts. I'm just sick of the gamifying of the victimhood, and you see it in the community, and you see it in the books. Freaking having just finished a Court of Mist and Fury. Again, we've got yet another book that uses a victimhood as the good guys, you recognize their victimhood, the bad guys, you don't recognize their victimhood, and you just demonize them for the exact same thing that you are praising your love interest for. It is disgusting. I don't know how to fix any of this other than talking about it and being like, guys, you need evidence to ruin somebody's life, okay? But now I'm just repeating myself. So with that said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. How hopeless are we? How angry are you at me for even talking about this? I still, watching people get run over continually and nobody speaking up about it, even just giving a chance. The same thing happened with the White Plague, if you remember that. Again, also the horror writing community, because there is just this reactive push every time with the horror writing community. And I don't know what the problem is, but every time that somebody gets pushed out for something like this, then the community gets more and more extreme, because all that is left are these reactive little cells that are going to come at you for saying anything. It just gets more dangerous. But if you remember, and I did a video on the White Plague here on the channel, that was a small press, that even just the idea of a book being called The White Plague and having a virus that targeted people based on race, that was enough to get them called all sorts of isms, especially a racism. And then they had to shut down their small press because all of these authors were pulling their books and demanding their books back from the publisher. And so they folded. And it's not... For people that write stuff about body horror and torture and the worst things that you can imagine, a bunch of sensitive people run this organization, run this genre. Look, if I can put up with Grady Hendrix, y'all can put up with a virus that targets people based on race. Please. But with that said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Looking forward to it. Have a great weekend. And if you have any ideas on how to solve for this, because it's been going on for 15, 20 years. Like, I went back to Gamergate for this, man. It's not getting better. It's just spreading into more people using this opportunism. Anyway, have a great weekend. Good luck. Don't die.
The only people who should come are those who want to meet their monsters.
If this is what Agatha wants, I don't know how we can even dispute it.
I change lives, baby.
And I and them. Sweetheart, no bargains hold. Only fools know restraint.
Only losers lose!
I've been under the knife so many times, I'm practically immune to it.
If your scissors are dull, may I recommend sharpening them with leather?
I think I hit you.
Mimol says I must have a guardian angel.
To enter the ring but abstain from playing is suicidal. Your virtue makes you nothing but a liability.
You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna die.